All right, what's going on, y'all? Get my camera out of the light a little bit. So, there we go. Better. Okay, so most people are doing these videos in their cars, right? Everyone's got these. They're mad at life and they're mad at their jobs and they just can't get happy. It seems like, and I see people they have all this content related to how terrible their jobs are and how terrible everything is and terrible, 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 gloom, 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 gloom. And this isn't one of those videos, right? This is a video about how you can love what you do. You can make it in your career if you just kind of change the way you approach work and you approach your life, and you just kind of look at life a little bit differently. Like, it doesn't have to be that bad, you know. So many people are just, like I said, it seems like they're really frustrated. It's like they live two separate lives. And I've talked about this before. You have the life where you go to work and you do this one thing, and then you dream about doing this other thing, you know, and that's fairly common. The thing that I don't think a lot of people do is I don't think a lot of people do the thing that they dream about doing all day and then go home and do that thing some more, right? Which you can do it, I'm telling you. And a lot of people might be saying, well, how the heck do I do that? How do I use the thing that I'm doing when I work my 9 to 5 to get to the thing that I want to do, which is the thing that I dream about doing all day, every day, right? So the truth is, you have to do something that's really in demand, that a lot of people don't want to do. And then there's not a lot of competition. So one of the things that I like to do is obviously I've been a woodworker forever. My stepdad was a woodworker. My dad, who lived in Portland, Oregon, was a pipe fitter, right? Or a welder, I guess is what you might say. We just call it pipe welder. Anyway, these jobs are things that everyone in my life growing up, they did this thing during the day, which in my case was a trade or a craft, whatever you want to call it. And then when they went home, they also did that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video, is that you need to do something that, again, you can do it your 9 to 5, and then you come in and do that thing when you get home. And I figured I'd tell some stories to kind of tell you guys exactly how I got to do what it is that I do, how my parents or my dads got to do what they did, and all these kind of things. And you might find this, be kind of interesting. I think it's different than what we're seeing on YouTube, which again is just all these people that are so pissed off at where they work and their lives. And excuse me, and I think we just need some different kinds of content out there. So anyway, so the title of Live is just Beat the Economy, right? And I say beat the economy because if you can learn to do after work what you do at work, you can then take that thing that somebody else is paying you to do, and it can become your full-time job. Like, there's no doubt about it. I wholeheartedly believe that you can be a full-time woodworker. You can be a full-time welder who works for themselves and employs other people, provided you've done that thing long enough, right? But if you're one of these people and I see all these warehouse videos, right? These people going to warehouse jobs. If you're going to do a warehouse job, right? You're going to do a warehouse job, and then you come home and you want to do woodworking. You can do that. There's no doubt about it. But how much better would your situation be if you went and did woodworking 9 to 5, working for somebody else, and then came home and did woodworking, being paid by somebody else to do that, right? Like, how much faster would you get good at? How much better would you be at managing your time, developing your skills, learning what products sell, right? Learning how to do all the other things that it takes to get to do the stuff for yourself, right? So that's the whole point of what I'm talking about, is you can't waste your life doing something that you don't do when you come home or that you're not passionate about, right? Like take waiting. If you're interested in, if you're going to be a waiter to make money, but then you come home and you want to be a coder, developing software apps and making, web pages, whatever, it's going to take you a long time to get really good at coding if you're being a waiter 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, however long you're working. But again, if you're woodworking or you're welding, 50, 60 hours a week, and then you come home and find time in the rest of your week to do 10 or 20 hours of woodworking on the side, again, you're going to accelerate how much faster you can do all those things. And so anyway, it was time to, people put out some content to show people that, hey, like, you could do it. It doesn't have to be some, shitty existence, and hopefully you get to find this thing that you want to do, So the way it worked for me was that growing up, I had my parents had a woodworking shop. We lived out in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, and my stepdad had a wood shop, and it was a very meager existence. We weren't rich. We didn't have anything too crazy, but I mean, there was enough money, and that's good, and life was fine. But from a very young age, I was staining furniture, I was sanding furniture, stuff like that from a very young age. And, as I got a little bit older, I started to do more where, maybe I was, planing face frame material, or I might have been, cutting out larger panels and easy to cut out stuff, learning to make things square. And this stuff took years and years and years of my dad, calling me airhead and telling me that all my work wasn't good enough. I need to do better. It just took years and years of that stuff. And eventually got good enough at that somebody else actually hired me in Kansas, of all places. So I had to move from from Oregon out to Kansas, right? And then from there, that's when I got my first real aerospace job. And I was making furniture for jets, starting at the very bottom. I think I was making $10 an hour. And within a year or two, I had increased my salary by about 50% because I started to make everything. I just kind of had a knack for working with laminates and working with veneers. And because I had done this stuff at such a young age, I was able to grow those skills, and I never stopped using those skills, right? It's not like I went from doing woodworking and then I suddenly decided I'm going to take off 4 years to go to college, right? Because I was going to go be somebody. I didn't do any of that. I just kept woodworking. And so my career just never stopped. Even though there were lots of years where it didn't move up, it kind of just moved laterally. There were plenty of years where it did move up, and some years it would way up, and then other years it would go way down, which I can tell a ton of stories about that. But anyway, point is, when I got to Kansas, I was working 60 hours a week at this place called Baumhoff making aerospace cabinets, and they needed just tons of help. And again, I was able to kind of carry my own there. I didn't shine. And what actually happened was within 3 months of me being there, the company got bought out and they laid off everybody and rehired everyone to the new company. And I wasn't one of the people who got rehired. So I immediately had to go find a new job, right? I've been to Kansas for 3 or 4 months, have no job, right? I moved from Oregon. So I did find another job right away, working for a company called Global Engineering and Technology. And again, from there, I was able to just grow and grow and grow and grow. I had a knack for making furniture, and I was able to prove myself and, again, grow my salary fairly quickly. But again, I was doing that 60 hours a week, right off the bat. That's how busy it was. And from there, I was able to buy a home relatively quickly. I think I had my first home when I was 22, 23 years old. It was pretty young. And had my own home. Well, that had a garage. And then that garage became the place where I started doing my own woodworking. I was into aquariums and saltwater fish, reef aquariums and stuff like that. Started making furniture for people on the internet. The internet was kind of young, but there were a lot of forums and people were looking for people to make furniture. Then I started making it in my local area because I was president of the Wichita Area Reef Association, which is pretty wild, right? Young guy, I was probably 25 at that time, and started making aquariums for everybody, not the glass part, but the wood part, the base and the canopy, the hood, whatever you want to call it. And that turned into a business, right? But again, I was still doing the 40, 50, 60 hours a week for Global Engineering, and then coming home and doing the woodworking stuff in my garage, right? And then before long, people are starting to see, oh, look, Eric's out there in his garage making things. So then I got neighbors coming over. Hey, what you doing? Can you fix a drawer? Can you fix a door? Can you make me this? I need a cabinet for my kitchen or for my pantry. And all those jobs just slowly turn into people knowing what it is that you do. And before you know it, you've got a business, right? And every time I would move, I would do the same thing, and then another business would form, and another business would form. But all the time, I was constantly working for these other companies, developing skills, learning new ways to do things, new technologies, new products, new tools, all kinds of things. And I would carry off into the next business that I would put together that would fail. And the businesses would always fail. The work was always there. There was always someone willing to pay me to work for them, but there wasn't necessarily always a customer to pay me to work for them. It was very different. So anyway, the point is, fast forward to now, and 25 years later, the working for woodworking companies my entire life, building different kinds of furniture and cabinets, has turned into failed business after failed business to where we are now, which has been in business now for 8 or 9 years at this point. And I haven't worked for somebody else, since then. It's always been myself, So I think a lot of people, I don't know if they're just starting out really young and not I want to say taking my path. My path is no path for nobody. I wouldn't recommend my path for anybody, but the older I get, the more I see that actually was a pretty good path to take. It was hard and difficult, but I think more people need to hear this story, because you can do these working with your hands jobs, and you can make really good money. When I was first getting into woodworking, my first real job working for an aerospace company, again, I made $10 an hour. That was my starting salary. And that $10 an hour, again, became $15 an hour in a couple of years, till eventually got into the 20s. And then actually around not 9/11, I'm sorry, the crash of 2008, right, the great financial recession, my salary plateaued, right? It stayed at like, I want to say it was like the mid 20s maybe, for like 3 or 4 years. Like no one was getting raises, no one was asking for raises because everyone was worried about losing their job. And while I can say I've never been laid off, I've never been unemployed, I've always been, a fairly top tier worker, and that's been great. It's that dedication to my craft from very young, and some people will dismiss it and say, well, my dad didn't do this or my mom did that. I didn't have that opportunity. Thing is that now I'm the owner of a company, right? So I've been doing this for a long time. I kind of understand how this stuff works. If a young person were to walk into my shop and ask for a job, right, provided they didn't want, what they call a living wage, I would be happy to train them with no experience to where they could learn how to build furniture, but it's got to make sense for both people. And I think what's happened is a lot of people have been, not only do they not have good examples growing up, they don't have good friends around them, and they take on jobs that they don't want to do long term. It's easy to say, well, you don't know what you want to do when you're young. Like, I get that. I completely empathize with that. But if more people see this kind of content, and so you can start doing something really young and literally fall in love with it from the day you start doing it. You don't realize it, of course, but it's this thing that you have kind of a love affair with for your entire life. And you can do that. But I'm here to tell you that, working at a warehouse probably isn't going to be it. Working at a restaurant probably isn't going to be it. Some of these jobs that, these office jobs that people do, it seems like people just hate them, driving Uber. What's the other one? DoorDash and also, like, I just don't think that these are jobs that people are going to aspire to do long term, right? And if these jobs are a bridge for you to get to do what you're going to do, again, what I said at the beginning of the video, like, why are you wasting your time doing that stuff? Like, you really should get into doing something that you really want to do, but be the bitch, right? Be the person that works for $10 an hour. And some of you will say, well, I can't do that, right? Like, I've got bills, I've got kids, I've got this, all that. Like, and I'm sorry, like, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to be that much harder for you to do it, but had you been younger and you have the opportunity to tell your kids and the people around you that you can do these things, you can take a low salary when you're young. And again, this always blows my mind. Like, they think that, like, blue collar people, right? People that go work on job sites and work with their hands, carpenters and woodworkers, welders, all these kind of tradesmen people, they think that, you get to be 18 and the first thing you're supposed to do, because you're a blue collar kind of an idiot type person, you're just supposed to go live on your own, right? The concept of being a blue collar type worker, tradesperson, and living at home for 4 years is kind of a mind fuck for people. They just don't think that that's impossible, but it's perfectly acceptable. Excuse me, it's odd that you would want to take $10 an hour, go learn a skill from somebody at a job, and then live at home. Right. But it's perfectly normal to take on $30,000 a year in debt, move out of your house, go to a dorm, or you could live at home. But the point is, you're paying somebody to learn something. For some reason, that equation is much more palatable, and the ROI on that is supposed to be better than the ROI on what someone like myself did, which is just go to work very young and not go to school. Like, I've never had a year where I owed a bunch of money to somebody else. I mean, other than like a house or maybe a car. I've never had loans of any kind related to an education or some kind of learning anything. It's always been, I'm getting paid. And that's how it can be for a lot of people. But you got to be willing to do it while you're young and build up those skills. And again, like I'm saying, do the thing from 8 to 5. And then because you like it so much, you could do it later on when you get off work and go do it for somebody else as well. But you could pick and choose what you want to work on and do it for yourself. So it's very different. And I don't know if this is helpful. I just hope that people, see this kind of stuff and realize you don't have to work for somebody else all the time and then go do the thing you really want to do after work. It doesn't have to be that way. And here's the thing. If you can, when you work for yourself, when the economy, like we're dealing with inflation right now, when inflation goes up, depending on what part of the economy you service, you're able to raise your prices, right? So if the cost of labor is going up for everybody, and the cost of goods, fuels, all these kind of things is going up for everybody, customers understand this, especially if you're working in the higher tier of the classes, like the higher class. They understand this, and you can raise your prices, and they're perfectly fine with that. Whereas when you work with a lower tier of people, right, people like myself, to be quite honest, we're much more picky about where we spend our dollars, or we're much more picky. We're much more susceptible to a change in price, right? The cost of gas goes up. We're like, oh shit. But the people that you're going to service as a business owner, or serve as a business owner, they don't even look at the cost of anything. I mean, really, it's not that big of a deal to them. So when you work with those people, you can, again, raise your prices. And there's a lot of things you could do as a person that has a business on the side, if it's the same thing that you do as work, right? So if you are a furniture maker like me, I can always write off all my tools. So when I was a furniture maker working for companies, you have to buy your own tools. Like, I don't think a lot of people know this, but as tradespeople, very young, the first thing I had to do before I ever got hired for my first job was go buy, I want to say it was like $100, $120 worth of tools that I had to have. They basically gave you a list of tools that you had to have. And that's what I did. I went and bought those tools, and I got a job. But when you have your own business, not only can you write off the tools for the trade that you have working for somebody else, you can write off the tools for your business, right? And so a lot of these things become kind of meshed together. Excuse me. Another aspect of doing a job and then doing that same job when you get off work, what that allows you to do is you can change your perspective on many things based on where you want to go. So what I mean by that is, say you want to go on vacation, right? Your vacations become places that you go for work. And this is a kind of anathema to a lot of people. A lot of people say, well, I want to go to Mexico, and my thought is like, well, unless you got a customer in Mexico, you ain't fucking going, So maybe you're going to go to, Dallas, Texas, or you're going on vacation to New Orleans. These are the places that you get to go because you can write those things off. You wait for an opportunity to go to one of these places. Maybe it's a trade show. Maybe you're going to vacation and you're going to go to High Point, North Carolina to go to a trade show, right? That you can also write off for your business, but you can take a vacation. You can take a couple of days and go check out the Chattahoochee Mountains or whatever, Blue Ridge Parkway, all those kind of things. Go to Asheville. But that's how it works, right? So this idea that you're going to take off work and go spend money on things just because you want to, unless they roll into your business, you're not going to do it, and that's how you're able to build up a company. That's how you're supposed to build up the experience to run a company, right? You're going to learn all these things. And it's something that is hard for people to fathom and to think about. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do if you own your own company that you just can't do as someone that works for somebody else. And the tax code is structured in such a way for those things to happen for a reason. Okay. The truth is that most people, when they go to work, they're going to work because it's stable, right? There's what you're going to do. Someone has outlined the workload for you. Someone has sold all the products. So all you have to do is make them, and someone's going to deliver them. You don't have to deal with any of that. And that's one of the reasons that the boss or the owner has the potential to make significantly more money than the worker, right? Because the worker has almost no risk. The owner, on the other hand, has all the risk, right? And that's because if the taxes aren't right, he goes out of business. If the insurance is on point, he goes out of business, right? If the regulations aren't followed, he goes out of business. If an employee gets injured, he could potentially go out of business. The owner gets sued. I mean, you see how this works, right? And again, the owner is a person that's probably done the work that I'm talking about 10, 20 years before you ever got there, right? So this person's put on all this work. So if you want to be that person, you got to do these things, and then you can do the same thing. But it's just a different way of thinking. Again, and I watch all these videos of people just constantly complaining and bitching about work and how they cost everything so expensive and they can't afford rent and all these kind of things. And I feel bad for people, but there is content out there that's a little bit more uplifting and a little bit more on the other side of things. You say, no, it is good. And I did a video a while back on, I talked about how work needs to become your life, and it got almost no traction because it's not popular. People like doom and gloom. And the truth is that if you're willing to bust your ass at work, and then when you get home, do the same thing. Don't do something completely different. Don't go to a warehouse job so you can learn to be a record producer when you get home. Like those, that's much more difficult, right? Or if you're one of these people that's, well, I'm going to work because my work has tuition reimbursement, and I'm going to go learn this thing that is completely antithetical to the job that I'm doing here. Like, no. If you're going to go to work here and these people are paying your tuition, find out what you can do for these people, right? That will then, you can do the same thing when you get out of work, right? So then you're growing here with the company, you're doing something that's helpful to them, you're going to school to learn the same thing. You're winning twice, right? And then when the school is done, you're helping the employer out. If you want later on in life, you can choose to try and do it by yourself, but you're always working on the same kind of a goal. So don't shortchange yourself. And again, spend 40 hours of work working on one thing that is completely antithetical to the thing that you're trying to do. Like that is no bueno, And again, if you can eat shit for a couple of years, learning a thing that you're going to do anyway when you get home, it will take you a lot farther, So I know that's, for some people, that's pie in the sky, and it's hard to listen to somebody tell you that if you're one of these people that just has a mountain of bills and no solutions and just can't seem to figure it out. That sucks, and I feel bad for people. But anyway, I want to keep doing these lives. I'm doing lots of talks about woodworking. I'm showing the shop. I'm showing the business, the Resplendent Crow, and what we do, what we get done every week. And I'm just trying to show people there's a different kind of a life out there. And it's not necessarily going to get you rich, and it's not easy, but it's very fulfilling. And this is something that I think people need a little bit more in their life, is they need something that's very fulfilling that they can do, that's not going to suck the soul out of them every day. They're not going to get up and just hate life when they have to go into work. Like, how nice would it be to go into work and actually kind of like the thing that you do enough to go do it after you get off of work, right? Like if you could do that, like I'm telling you, that's 50% of making it. So it can be done, and there is people talking about it, and it's not all doom and gloom. We don't all hate our lives, we don't all hate our jobs, and we aren't, telling that everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Some of us really do think that life is great, and it's, like I said, it's not always going to get you paid, and it's not always going to be easy, but it's better than the alternative of hating what you do every day. So anyway, I hope everyone has a great night, and I'll keep doing these lives. And again, Fridays, I'm showing you what we got done in the shop at the Resplendent Crow. And Sundays, I'm trying to give you guys a look at some of our furniture, kind of in-depth, raw, talk about the finishing process and a little bit of stuff like that. So keep an eye out for those. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It always helps the algorithms to submit comments and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm going to grow this channel into yet another revenue stream for the Resplendent Crow. So if there's topics you guys want to hear about, you want to know about the business, you want to know about things outside of the business, finance, loans, taxes, regulations, all that kind of stuff, just hit up with the comments, and we'll work on content for those things. So have a good one.